Hello everyone, good evening, and a warm welcome to this session of readings from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, the magnificent dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra just prior to Kali Yuga, the age of which is described as the age of quarrel, hypocrisy, where people are manda, sumanda, that is very lazy, spiritually lazy, very lazy, very unaccomplished spiritually, and also alpa ayusha and alpa medhasha, that is alpa ayusha, that is of very small lifespans and very small intelligence, very small spiritual intelligence in understanding the larger picture, the universal, eternal, worldview, or the, understanding of the absolute truths of existence. So, in the course of this journey of understanding the essence of the great spiritual teachings of our timeless traditions, in this of our ancient civilization, we have actually completed the second chapter, and we are now doing the third chapter, and we have completed the sixth verse, and today we're going to begin the seventh verse of the third chapter, which is called Karma Yoga, and the quota for today is verses 7 and 8 of the third chapter. But before we begin, and it is a very auspicious day today. It is Shubho Shashti, the sixth day of Navaratri, the most auspicious period of propitiating the greatest Vaishnavi, Ma Durga, and her 9 forms. But before we begin, it's time to offer obeisances to the spiritual master and to all spiritual masters seeking their blessings. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and the spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him and to all spiritual masters. And with that, I will begin reading but before I begin reading the 7th chapter, to do a quick recap of the first few verses. In the first verse of the third chapter, Arjuna asks Janardhan, addressing the Lord as Janardhan or Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? So the Lord in the last section of the second chapter, he goes on explaining how Buddhi Yoga, working in spiritual intelligence, is the best. And then, so Lord Arjuna is a little confused. He's saying, if you think working in intelligence is the best, then why do you want to engage me in karma? That is, in activity, as like the kind you are asking me to do, engage in warfare. Why do you want me to do activity? Why do you want me to do karma? And this kind of ghastly karma, which is actually, warfare, battle. Why do you want to engage me? Why do you want to engage me in battle? So he tells in the second chapter that my intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. And then Lord Krishna says that, there are 2 classes of people. Then Bhagavan Uvacha, from the third chapter, Bhagavan says that, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Most of us don't. But some are inclined to understand it by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. And in the purport, Prabhupada had said that from the 39th verse of the second chapter, Lord Krishna had said that by working in principles of Buddhi Yoga or Krishna consciousness, one can be relieved from the bonds of action, and furthermore, there is no flaw in the process. So to be in the, when one does any kind of action, one has to suffers the consequences or enjoy the consequences, the fruits of that action. So the if it is good action, then it's like one enjoys the rewards, and if it is bad action, one is punished. So either way, like if one has to be punished or to enjoy, one will have to take birth, and to take birth in the Kali Yuga is very, very dangerous, because the environment progressively degrades. And because the environment degrades, the degradation of consciousness, because we are the company we keep. So if we keep if we are compelled by the environment to keep company of people who are not interested in developing their spiritual intelligence, it is more logical, or it is what will happen, that our consciousness will devolve rather than evolve. And then in a devolved state of consciousness, to actually rescue it is very difficult. To elevate it is very difficult. So if we keep taking birth in the Kali Yuga, which will give us progressively bad association, and an environment which is more and more like dangerous and miserable, because as it is, we've seen how the environmental conditions, there's climate change, water resources are getting scarce, people are, and even sociological consequences. There are so many sociological and social problems, political problems. So entire environment is not conducive for developing spiritual intelligence. So to take rebirth in such circumstances, there is every possibility of devolving rather than evolving. So therefore, and then to be sink more and more deeply in the cycle of misery of birth, death, old age, and death and disease in progressively difficult environment, and where the chances of extracting the consciousness and elevating it to its highest state is more and more impossible. So it is now. So therefore, to even do good action is not recommended in the Shastras. It is said that it is better to connect everything to the Lord. So that way we do not have we are freed from the bonds of reaction. Like if it is action as an offering to the Lord, and that action has to be, and to do an action that is an offering to the Lord, there has to be purity, because the Lord is Shuddhama Papavidham and does not accept anything that is not pure. Therefore, to actually, so then our activities are very, examined and careful. Activities of the mind, how we think, how we act, what we say, and what company we keep. In terms of not just a physical association, but even in terms of books or what we read, and what we think. So therefore, that is actually Buddhi Yoga, and it is described. And in Buddhi Yoga, every action is dedicated to the Lord, and so a person in Buddhi Yoga is not affected by the external environment, and is actually rises to the sattva guna. And when one is in sattva, that is when actually that is the mode of goodness. That is where one can actually develop the spiritual intelligence. So the whole purpose of existence is to control the senses, to control the mind, and to actually come up at least to the level of sattva. And for that, of course, Buddhi Yoga is to one cannot control the senses just by oneself, by one's own free will. It's easier to connect by doing some regulative activities, exerting some discipline upon oneself and upon one's senses, upon one's mind. But also, it is helpful to connect all our activities of the thought, word, and deed to the Lord, and that way we are able to purify our mind. And Arjuna had wanted to run away from battle and, in a way, renounce activities, renounce his duties in society. And then, so then that is, in that context, the Lord has said that, one who just is not ready for it psychologically, and just 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 runs away from activity, then one is very unfortunate, and the actual goal of purification of the heart, the adhikara for developing spiritual intelligence, that will not come. And he had also said in the 5th verse that everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So activity is not something that people can refrain from. And therefore, one has to act. So that is karma. One has to act because the spirit soul is very active. That is the nature of the spirit soul. So anybody who says one can just sit in one place and meditate and do nothing, it's like actually a very temporary state, and one is bound to fall down. And there are lots of instances where this has happened, and it has been recorded in the Shastras. Therefore, because it is easy to for a while to control the senses, but the mind has to be also purified, and that is not easy unless one is acts in Krishna consciousness all the time. And one who restrains the senses of action but whose mind dwells on sense objects, that is also useless, and such a person is called a pretender or a mithyachara. So therefore, the Lord says, don't take sannyasa. It's very silly, because you're psychologically not ready for it. And if you're not psychologically ready for it, and if you do it, then you will not achieve the purpose of evolution of consciousness, of achieving the highest goal of life. So therefore he says that sannyasa is not recommended for just anybody, and it is better to be a detached householder than an attached sannyasi. That is what Puri Janadasa had said in his explanation to the 6th verse of the 3rd chapter. So now we'll read the 7th verse, which goes like this. Yastavindriyani manasa niyamyarabhate arjuna karmendriye karmayogam asakta savishishyate. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses of the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is far superior. So here Prabhupada explains that instead of becoming a pseudo-transcendentalist for the sake of wanton living and sense enjoyment, it is far better to remain in one's own business and execute the purpose of life, which is to get free from material bondage and enter into the kingdom of God. The prime Swarthagati, or goal of self-interest, is to reach Vishnu. And the whole institutions of Varna and Ashrama is designed to help us reach this goal of life. A householder can also reach his destination by regulated service in Krishna consciousness. For self-realization, one can live a controlled life as prescribed in the Shastras and continue carrying out his business or his karma without attachment, and in that way make progress. A sincere person who follows this method is far better situated than the false pretender or mithyachara who adopts show bottle spiritualism, that is what Prabhupada is saying, to cheat the innocent public. A sincere sweeper in the street is far better than the charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. So to sit and meditate is actually not a natural condition for the soul, because the soul is very active. So one may sit in meditation and feel good for a while, but meditation, the purpose of meditation is not to feel good. One can do it to feel peaceful for a while, but that is not the purpose. The purpose of meditation is to is actually contemplation of the Lord. And if that is not done, and just to sit and kind of free the mind in a kind of empty the mind for a while, that is actually not the goal of meditation. So it is rather, it is, one cannot remain in an empty state or a state of void all the time, because it is unnatural for the soul to be inactive. So therefore it is said that transcendentalists who just give up material life because they are sick and tired of material life, that is actually not very spiritually smart. The smarter thing to do, Buddhi Yoga, is to connect all activities to the Supreme, and that way it is very much in sync, in rhythm that with the nature of the soul, and then there are far greater chances of attaining the goal of life, which is Vishnu. And so Prabhupada therefore says it's better to be a sincere sweeper in the street than a charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. So meditation, even if it is not for making a living, it doesn't actually serve the purpose if it is only done to feel good for a while, and then to continue with all kinds of material activities for the sake of material activities, for the sake of one's own enjoyment, rather than for as a sacrifice to Vishnu. And here Puri Janadasa adds to this, and he says that this verse describes the householder as being better situated than the Mithyachara sannyasi. In his purport, Srila Prabhupada glorifies the Varnashrama system because it leads a conditioned soul gradually towards self-realization. So the whole purpose of stratification of society or classification of society according to the Varnashrama system, of which the dysfunctional aspect is what we know as the caste system today. Actually, the purpose of the Varnashrama system is to classify people according to their natural propensities, their nature, their intrinsic character, and to classify them as Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and then to prescribe activities for them whereby the needs of the body, the needs of the senses, the needs of the mind, the needs of the emotion, and the needs of the spirit are very beautifully integrated through certain prescribed duties which are suitable and in sync with the psychological and physical characteristics of the individual, of the soul which is embodied in that kind of a body. And then this way, by continuing to do the prescribed duties, the consciousness evolves higher and higher. One gains in knowledge because that is the activities are suitable for that body. The soul embodied in that kind of a body. And then when one says that kind of a body, one means the physical body, the gross body, and the subtle body. That is the mind, ego, and intelligence. So that is the purpose of Varnashram, where one is gradually weaned away from one's, being totally engrossed in enjoying oneself, which is not the purpose of, the human body. So now we come to the 8th verse, and we are going to do that in the next video. So see you in the next video.